Now this simplification is going to be a little bit harder to process, mainly because it's fractions and because it's addition of fractions with different denominators. So you're going to need to be able to find common denominators. And you did this in algebra, so if you have forgotten how to find common denominators, you're going to need to go back and practice that. In this one, when we look, we see a denominator of 1 minus cosine t and sine t. And since they're completely different, the two of them combined would be the common denominator. Now, just as a quick little review, if I had x and I had y as denominators, the x and the y would be the denominator. But if I had x squared and x and y as the denominator, I wouldn't take all three of them. I would take x squared y because this x is included in x squared. So your goal is to find a denominator that includes every expression that you have. So x squared y includes x squared, it includes y, and it includes x. So you would want to make sure that you're careful when you're finding common denominators. So in this one, since they're different, we have sine and 1 minus cosine. Now, remember that when you add fractions, like for instance, if I had 4/5 plus 1/10, 10 would be the common denominator, and I would say 5 goes into 10 twice. In other words, if 10 is 2 times 5, 5 is included in both spots, but the 2 is left over, so I would take the 2 and multiply it by the 4. Up here, the 10 is included, so I wouldn't need anything to multiply the 1 except a 1. And so I would get 9/10 as my answer. Let's go ahead and erase that so that we have more space here to do what we need to do. Okay, so I've made you some space there now. So in the problem that we're looking at, we have a common denominator. This one is included down here, so I'm left with the sine, and sine times sine is sine squared. In this one, the sine is included, and I have left 1 minus cosine, so it would be multiplied by the 1 minus cosine. So this is what we have so far. So when we do our simplification, we've already simplified the sine squared, but we need to simplify this by multiplying. You can FOIL, you can distribute, whatever you need to do, but 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times minus cosine is minus cosine. Minus cosine times 1 is another minus cosine. And minus cosine times minus cosine is plus cosine squared. So we end up with 1 minus 2 cosine plus cosine squared. So that's what that one expression is. So let me clear it and let's write down what we have so far. We have sine squared plus, and then we have what we multiplied out, which is 1 minus 2 cosine t plus cosine squared, and we have our common denominator still is down there. So when I look at the top and I try to simplify, I can see from my Pythagorean identities, I have sine squared plus cosine squared. And from your Pythagorean identities, Sine squared plus cosine squared is 1. So I have a 1 plus 1 minus 2 cosine t. And that's all on the top. And I'm just going to put a little CD for common denominator standing down here so I don't have to write this thing again for now. Then I have 1 plus 1 is 2 minus 2 cosine t. And again, I'm just going to put common denominator for now. I can factor a common term out of the top, which is the 2. So I have 2 times 1 minus cosine t. And now I'm ready to copy down the common denominator again. And I have something that is the same, so I can cancel. And I have left 2 over sine t and 1 over sine t, so this is 2 times 1 over sine t, is actually cosecant, so I would have 2 cosecant t. And that would be simplified, and that's an example of one that you could simplify by using addition and subtraction. So again, when you have two things with different denominators, you want to go through and find a common denominator, and then you're going to compare the old denominator to the new denominator and see what's left to multiply by the numerator, and then you're going to simplify. So these are probably some that you're going to need practice with.